Okay, 25 starts by asking a lot of stuff. We'll start with what causes the undefined pieces in tangent related to sine and cosine? Well, tangent is sine over cosine. So this is going to be undefined anywhere that cosine is 0, because then we're doing something divided by 0, which is not okay. That's a vertical asymptote. So 26 is going to ask us to sketch from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. So let's just start doing that. Here's 2 pi. Here's negative 2 pi. Let's put in these undefined pieces. Here's 0, pi, negative pi. Okay. Well, cosine is 0. Here's a unit circle. Cosine is 0 on these vertical axes, here and here. This is pi over 2. This is 3 pi over 2. Okay, so we're going to have to put these in. 3 pi over 2, pi over 2, negative pi over 2, and negative 3 pi over 2. One way to think about it is that's where cosine is 0. Another way to think about it is that's where our line has an infinite slope, which is undefined. So we can put in asymptotes here. We'll put one in at 3 pi over 2. Pi over 2, again, this is where cosine is 0. Negative pi over 2 and negative 3 pi over 2. All right, the next question says, what is happening at the undefined pieces as it relates to slope? Okay, so at the undefined pieces, we're reaching an infinite slope. As tangent becomes larger and larger, what do we know must be happening to sine and cosine? Okay, so let's go back to right here. This value, what we're saying is this tangent value is getting closer and closer to infinity. So what must be happening on a unit circle is sine must be getting closer and closer to 1, because that's as big as sine can get. And cosine, since cosine is our x value, cosine is becoming smaller and smaller. So we're taking a number that's getting close to 1 and dividing it by a number that's getting close to 0, which the result is going to end up being big. So when tangent's becoming large, we know that sine must be getting closer to 1 and cosine must be getting closer to 0. We're dividing that number getting close to 1 by a number close to 0, and we're going to infinity. Okay. So then at 0, pi, 2 pi, negative pi, and negative 2 pi, what's happening is we have a slope of 0, because that's when our angle is 0. When we have an angle of 0, we just have a nice horizontal line which has slope 0. Sine at that point is 0. We have 0 over whatever cosine is, which is just 0. And then we know that what's happening is the slope of our, again, we can think of tangent as the slope of these lines in our unit circle. So what's happening is we go from negative pi, which is down here, up to negative. Let me draw these lines in kind of messily, but I'll draw them in. Okay. What's happening is we go from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 is we start with a huge negative slope, which is then getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It hits 0, and then it goes up and up and up and up to infinity. So what we have is we start with a negative infinity slope. It comes up and start with a negative infinity slope. Oh my god, there it is. Comes up and up and up and up. It goes through 0, and then it shoots off to infinity. All right, and now let's move from pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2, which is right here on our graph, pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2. Well, we start with a huge negative slope that is then getting less steep, less steep, less steep till it hits 0. And then it's positive now. It's small at first, but now it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it hits that undefined point again. So then we're coming through, our huge negative slope, we hit 0, and then we shoot up to infinity. All right, and then that same thing is happening in every section of this graph. We get a bunch of cubic-looking things, and that's really all you need to know about tangent. You need to know how it's related to sine and cosine. Why does its shape make sense? How do we know where it's undefined? And just remember to understand tangent as slope of a line on our unit circle.